Now what we're going to do is a whistle-stop tour through the entire of the unit of Muslim practices, and then at the end of it I'm going to send you 2 end of unit tests and you can choose which one to do. Okay, and it's going to be 9 lessons in total, and the first lesson we will cover the 5 pillars and the first pillar of those, which is the Shahada. And yeah, welcome to this new way of learning. Have your exercise books if you've got them, or make notes on paper. Feel free to stop the videos and then go check up in the textbook if you want to, but everything that I cover in here is in the textbook as well, and any resources that you need will be where you got this from on Frog. Okay, so sorry, we're going to recap what you already know about the 5 pillars of Islam, because we covered it in year 7 or 8. I think it was year 8 for you guys. Have a little understanding of each of the pillars and their purpose, and essentially we're going to look at the first pillar, and then the other lessons after this we'll look at the others. Okay, now if you have a look at the screen here, you can see that we have covered everything in beliefs and teachings apart from Akira. I didn't see the point in covering that because it wasn't included in the mock exam we did, and you're not going to have an actual exam where it will come up, so we're leaving that bit out. And we're going to cover the 5 pillars. Yeah, pretty sure we're going to have a look at, well, we'll look at most of these. It's just 9 lessons. And most of it is knowledge that you probably already have, so it should be quite easy. All right, so the 5 pillars of Islam are the Shahada, which is the declaration of faith, the Salah, which is praying 5 times a day, Zakah, which is giving money to the poor, Sawm, or known as Ramadan, so fasting, and Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay, and I've told you the Arabic word for each one now, and I've told you the purpose for each one. Well, the reason that they're called pillars is because pillars support a structure. So these are the things that Muslims do that support their faith, and their actions, or these actions are called ibadah, which is their intention of their obedience to God, and doing these shows their submission to Allah. So I've actually gone a little bit ahead now, as you can see. Oops, sorry, there we go. So what is ibadah then? Well, ibadah are acts of worship that show the intention of being obedient to God. And the word for that you need to know is the niyyah. Interestingly, I'll get onto that on a couple of slides away. Niyyah was something that came up in an exam last year, no, 2 years ago, and NK hadn't learnt it at all, and we had stormed ahead because we knew all the proper words. So niyyah, good word to know. In a way, these pillars, these 5 acts of worship, or ibadah that they do, are practical signs of true submission, which is similar to the idea of sacraments in Christianity. So it's like an outward symbol of their dedication, submission to Allah. Okay, now the 5 pillars are, when we talk about the 5 pillars, we're talking really about Sunni Muslims. Now the Shia also follow the 5 pillars with some slight adjustments. For example, their Shahada is slightly different. In fact, I think I'll just have a look, it's on page 275, and if you're going to read anything from the textbook, the online textbook, it's really useful to have a look at page 275, because it's got the key differences between Sunni and Shia beliefs and practices. And the second one down, the Shahada, is slightly different because they've added in that they witnessed that Ali was a friend of Muhammad, and of course Sunni Muslims don't have that in theirs. Their rules, or their practices, are known altogether as the 10 obligatory acts of Shia Islam, and we will look at those in one of the lessons. Now, you don't need to do this activity, but if you have a look there, you can see the 5 pillars there. There's 5 images to help you remember which is which. You won't really need to do that, as you're not taking an exam in a traditional way, just end of unit test that I set you. Okay, so moving on. Let's have a look. So why do Muslims believe that it's important to follow the 5 pillars? Well, first of all, they believe it's important because of what we've already said, that it shows their submission and dedication to Allah. So it's very important for them because it's their outward sign of their true dedication. We've kind of already answered that. And Muhammad taught that the pillars were very, very important. In fact, on page 251 in the textbook, there is a quotation. I'll read it to you. It says, "God witnesses that there is no deity except him, and the angels and those of knowledge, maintaining in justice, there is no deity except him, the exalted in might, the wise." So basically you'll find lots and lots of quotations in the Quran that would back up the importance of the 5 pillars and recognising that there is only one God, Allah, and he's the only one worthy of praise. So the Shahada underpins all of the other pillars of Islam. What else? Oh, so Niyyah, the word Niyyah, literally kind of like means to get yourself in the right frame of mind, to have the right intention to worship Allah. So there's no point going to do your salah, which is your prayer 5 times a day, if you haven't got your head in the right frame of mind. So you need to be in the right headspace for worship. So, and again with zakah, which is giving, if you're giving because you just have to and not from a true sense of dedication, then that isn't niyyah. And the niyyah is having the right intention of the 5 pillars, not just doing it as like, what do you call it, when you just go through the motions. That's it. It's not just going through the motions, it has to be sincere. So that's the importance of niyyah. Now what I'm going to show you is a 7-minute video that gives you a really nice summary for each of the pillars.
My name is Faisal Bachelani, and my name is Jaber Bachelani. We live in Beckenham. We're both 16 years old, and we're twins. Me, Jaber, I'm older. Well, Jaber's older by 1 minute, but I'm still taller. We are both Muslims. My family is all Muslim. We're quite religious. We practice a lot, especially my dad. At the moment, we are in the sacred month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic year. Sacred because Prophet Muhammad received the first words of the Quran, the sacred book for Muslims. During Ramadan, Muslims are meant to fast, so we're not meant to eat or drink from when the sun comes up to when the sun comes down. The first meal of the day before sunrise is called Sehri. The Muslim year is shorter than the Western year, and this means that Ramadan becomes earlier by 10 days each year. At this present time, Ramadan is in the summer. The days are quite long. The most important things as Muslims we have to do are called the 5 pillars of Islam. A pillar is a column that basically holds up a building. They support the whole faith, so without them it wouldn't be Islam. So the first pillar of Islam is the Shahada. We have to say the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is only one God and the Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. The second pillar of Islam is Salah, which is prayer. Muslims are expected to pray 5 times a day. Wudu is a way to cleanse yourself before prayer. You have to wash your face, wash your hands, wash your arms, wash your legs. The call to prayer is done just at the beginning of Fajr, which is the first prayer of the day. My father usually leads the prayer. My grandpa usually prays with us as well. My mum and my grandma usually pray with the group, but because the camera people were here today, they prayed in a separate room. Muslims pray in the direction of the Kaaba, a big cube-shaped building which is in Mecca, because Muslims believe that the Kaaba is the house of God. During prayer you have to recite passages of the Quran, and then you have to prostrate to Allah. It's when you bow to God. It symbolises that He is the one Lord, He created all of us, and He alone deserves praise, and we are His servants. It is quite hard to concentrate in lessons when you're fasting. You feel the urge to eat, your tummy constantly hurts, and your mouth is quite dry all the time. I think you're exaggerating a little bit. If it's on the first day, yeah, it's going to be hard, but the other days you get used to it. Sometimes it's bad, but it depends on the day, really. In school, at lunchtime, we pray the Salah, the second Salah. We usually pray in the chapel, sometimes with friends or sometimes alone. The third pillar of Islam is called zakah, and it is where Muslims give charity to the poor. Instead of using my lunch money for lunch for Ramadan, I would save the money for charity. When we start earning, we will give zakah, which is a 40th of our money left over when we've paid for our homes and food. Sadaqah is a voluntary act of giving to charity. Because we don't earn yet, we give sadaqah. We regularly go to a charity shop on the high street. I do ironing, iron some clothes. We label clothes. We help at the reception area. It's better to go out and help others rather than sitting at home. The third prayer of the day is called Asr. The fourth pillar of Islam is Sawm or fasting on the holy month of Ramadan. Muslims are meant to feel what it's like to feel poor. It's meant to make us grateful for what we have rather than wanting more. It's also meant to cleanse us because it is a holy month. My mum and my grandma usually don't wear a headscarf in the house, but Muslim women usually cover their hair in the presence of strangers. When the sun goes down, we are free to eat. Usually we first of all have a date and a glass of water, and then we pray Maghrib Salah, which is the fourth Salah, and then after that we have a big feast. We have our favourite food. Our mum cooks a lot of food. That meal is called iftar. It feels great, you know. It feels great to eat again. You know, you feel for those who don't have enough food for a day or for a year. The fifth pillar of Islam is Hajj. It's a sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. You have to do a lot of rituals, and you have to also visit a lot of places where the Prophet visited. The most important part of the Hajj is visiting the Kaaba, which is the house of God. The Hajj happens in a specific month, Dhul Hijjah. We ourselves haven't actually been to Hajj, but we've been to a minor one called the Umrah. We didn't do it in that specific month, but we saw the Kaaba. It's a lot different from the pictures. You feel in awe of it. Our dad wants us to go on the Hajj in 2 years' time. He wants us to become a bit more mature first, you know. Usually we pray Isha, which is the fifth prayer in the day, at home with our family, but because it's Ramadan, we pray Isha at the mosque. You see a lot of your friends, a lot of your relatives, you know, it's a very happy sight. In the mosque, your mind is focused on praying, so you feel closer to God. Ramadan is quite an important part of Islam. It's quite special to me because I do a lot of different stuff in Ramadan. It brings our family together. It makes us all kind of come together and eat together. I think it's special because in Ramadan I feel closer to God. The 5 pillars are special to me because they are the most important part of Islam, without which you can't really call yourself a Muslim.
Hello, I'm back again. So, moving on, that was a nice little summary and overview of the 5 pillars and why they're important to Muslims. So moving on to the first pillar, or the Shahada. Some might say it's not the first pillar but the central pillar, because it's that one from which all the other acts, they have to be done from a place of recognising the Shahada as being the most important. So this is the Shahada here. I'm not going to try and say it for you. at least not in Arabic. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. Okay, and so there's two core beliefs in that statement there. The first one is monotheism, that there is no God but Allah. And you can use the words God and Allah interchangeably, it's not a problem, you don't get penalised for it. And that Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. So it's recognising the importance of the prophethood as of Muhammad being the final prophet there. And as I already said, for Shia Muslims, it's slightly different on the Shahada because they put that Ali is his friend. Okay, yeah, most important statement there, and Ali's his friend. So, where are we? I'm going to read something to you from page 251. Now, all the way through this, as usual, there's questions going through. So if you want to pause it and answer those questions in your book so you've got your notes, that's fine. But it's up to you really. You've got these then to go back to when you do your end of unit tests. So the Shahada is a summary of the religion of Islam, the belief in only one God and the acceptance of Muhammad as his final messenger sent by God to reveal the divine path to life. And the divine path to life is called the Sharia, which we will look at, I think, on lesson 6 or 7. Okay. Now I've got another very short video for you. This one, it just goes into the Shahada in a little bit of detail.
The Shahada is a testament that there is only one God and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of God. It is a set statement normally recited in Arabic. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. It is essential to utter this in order to become a Muslim. This testament is the foundation for all other beliefs in Islam. The statement of faith must be genuine, and it encapsulates all the following articles of faith: the belief in one God, the belief in prophets, the belief in holy books, the belief in angels, the belief in judgment, and the belief in destiny.
Okay. So yeah, it covers everything really. I'm just going to skip through that part there because we've kind of already covered it and move on to this bit. So when is the Shahada said? Well, the Shahada is said 5 times a day in the call to prayer, in what is called the Adhan. It is also said when a baby is born, as the first thing that newborn baby hears, and they put honey on the baby's lips to signify that these words are the sweetest words you'll ever hear. Aww. And they also say it as last rites if it can be said. So when someone is about to die, they want those words of the Shahada to be the last words they hear. Another important thing, I think we've covered this as well, that the Shahada demonstrates Muslims' belief in monotheism, which we've kind of covered a lot already. But one of the important things is this idea of conversion, is that Muslims don't actually say convert to Islam, they call it a reversion. And this we've covered already, I think, as well, is this idea that when somebody becomes a Muslim in Christianity, if we become a Christian, they call them converted to Christianity. But Muslims would say no, they've reverted back to their natural faith because everybody is Muslim. Okay, so conversion or reversion, you can use either word, but a lot of Muslims would rather talk about reversion. You are now a Muslim, which is the state that you should have been in all along. Let's have a look. Now this is an interesting one. If someone does convert or revert, they say the Shahada 3 times in front of witnesses and they become a Muslim. Well, that isn't strictly true. that is what they need to do. However, as we've talked about niyyah before, so niyyah is having the right intention. When the shahada said, it has to be genuine, and you can't just say the words, you've got to actually believe in those words. So yeah, I've got it on here. So every action is to please and obey God, that's the ibadah, and you must have the right intention, the niyyah. So saying the words alone are not just enough, because you have to embrace all of the pillars and live your life as a Muslim 24/7. I think we're just about there really. So 275 is the page that I told you about before. Let me just nip to that again now. It points out the key differences between Sunni and Shia Muslims. So the Shahada, again, the only difference there is that the Shia Muslims would add in that Ali was a friend of God. However, because Sunnis don't recognise Ali in their leadership, then they don't have that in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. Here are the kinds of questions you would get. Describe the 5 pillars of Islam. Easy peasy. There's 5 pillars, 1 mark for each one. And explain what Muslims believe about the importance of the Shahada. Again, nice and easy. As you know, in this kind of exam question, it's point, evidence, explain, and you need to probably make about 2 or 3 good points to get full marks on that. Okay, and to finish off, the Shahada is the most important of the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, you can probably answer this question better having explored all the other pillars, but for example, you would be wanting to say things like the Shahada is the most important as it underpins all of the other pillars because it's their statement of faith. It summarises the beliefs and teachings of all Muslims, etc., etc. And then as you hear from the others, you'll be able to say, however, this one could be seen as more important at this particular time because of this. So you don't have enough information at the minute to answer that as a full 15 marker, but you have enough information about the Shahada to explain why it is of the utmost importance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of lesson 1. See you soon.